Dwight's Speech is the 17th episode of the second season of The Office. This is directed by Charles McDougall, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And there are two main parts of the narrative, so I will talk about them separately, and I will leave the bit with Dwight until the end. The other part focuses on Jim and Pam, and I do feel like we're really crawling at a snail's pace with their relationship or lack thereof. As I've mentioned before, I'm really desperate for something to happen between them, and my hope, and I haven't looked ahead, I've intentionally avoided spoilers, but my hope is that they get together before Pam gets married and it's too late. But I'm assuming that will all come to a head at the end of this season. In this episode, Pam is talking a little bit about her wedding. People are asking her questions about it, of course, and she's very cautious of talking about it around Jim because she knows how he feels. And Jim has decided to take a trip, and it turns out he's going on vacation on June 8th. And we know that that's just when Pam is getting married, so he's going away so he can't go to her wedding. On the one hand, that's a bit selfish because Pam wants him at the wedding, but at the same time he is protecting himself from a lot of really horrible emotions, so I don't necessarily blame him. Will he go ahead with the trip? Well, some people in the office don't think he will. I'm keen to see what happens there, but I'm glad that we've moved forward a little bit with Pam and Jim, but I still wish we'd get there, if we get there, a little bit more quickly. The main narrative focuses on Dwight, of course, and Dwight has won Top Salesman of the Year in the company, and he's going to have to give a speech at the ceremony, and Michael encourages him to say some random things Michael first of all tells everybody they're getting a large bonus, which was a terrible thing to do. I feel like he should honour that bonus out of his own pocket now just for telling the lie, and Dwight doesn't quite understand how to do that. He ends up saying "Good morning, Vietnam," which had no effect on anybody. And then Jim has some fun by telling Dwight he majored in public speaking, which he didn't do, and gives him some advice. And I was really keen to see how that advice would play out. We then go to the event, we do get to see it, and Dwight is visibly terrified. He is clearly shaking and sweating, and I like the fact that we get to see Dwight vulnerable like that, because Dwight comes across as being often very overconfident in his own abilities, in his own position. He likes to think he's higher up than he actually is, and to see him then terrified like this shows that actually he's not completely just full of his own abilities, and that he does have these vulnerabilities. So Michael goes up on stage temporarily in Dwight's place and starts to talk a lot of nonsense. He starts with a joke. What's the difference between a salesman and a saleswoman? And actually, we didn't get the punchline, and I really want to know what the punchline for that is. And Dwight ends up going up, and I think, and this is just my reading of it, but I think Dwight went up there partly to shut Michael up, because Michael was just making a fool of himself. And Dwight goes up and he does give this brilliant performance, very aggressive speech, clearly with some tactics taken from dictators in history, and he ends up starting shouting about the motherland, and that was bad. But the worst part is when the people in the audience started to really buy into it, and they were chanting along with him, and it was kind of terrifying, but very well done. The scene played out very well, and I thought it was very interesting, but also kind of dark. And as the narrative developed, I thought it worked really well. I wasn't sure if we'd actually get to see Dwight giving his speech, so I think everything flowed really well, and I was really satisfied with how everything turned out. Michael was a tiny bit annoying in this episode, but in general, I thought it was a good part of the story. With regards to Pam and Jim, I just wish things would move forward a little bit more quickly. I'm desperate for something to happen, or for somebody to say something, or at least for Pam to realise that she's getting married for the wrong reasons. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful the right things will happen. Angela's behaviour in this episode was a little bit strange, but I'm also not a fan of Angela. I really don't like her as a character. Maybe that will change over time, but for now, not really a fan. But the episode in general, pretty good. Dwight's speech certainly had some moments. Any personal highlights? I think Dwight shouting about the motherland was quite interesting. But other than that, I don't think there was anything specific that stood out to me as being interesting. Just as a whole, didn't mind it. Never a favourite episode, I don't think, but Dwight's speech was still pretty good.